Hey there Dev Squad, Virtus here and welcome back to my Unreal Engine 4 Mech Combat tutorial series. Within today's video we're going to be setting up sprinting and the energy system that it's going to be running on. If you take a look at the heads up display reference that I've got being shown on the screen, you can see just above our health bar we have a yellow bar, and that yellow bar is going to be for sprint energy, and as you hold down shift and sprint that is going to be going down. What we're also going to be doing is having the sprint energy regenerate, but that's going to be covered in another video. For now, what we're going to be doing is getting it set up so when you hold down shift, it's going to take away the energy and move the player quicker than they are by default. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight in. So the first thing that we're going to need to do then for this sprinting system is create an input for it. This input, we're going to be doing this the proper way, so what you want to do is go to File, Edit, go to your project settings, and then from within here, we need to create that input. So on the left hand side, go to Engine, and then Input, go to your action mappings, and with this, if you just expand it, add a new action mapping, and with this, we are going to be giving it the name Sprint. And then with this sprint, we can now set a key binding. The key binding is whatever you want to activate your sprint. For me, this is going to be the left shift on our keyboard. So within the search panel here, I can type in left and then shift, and you can see underneath keyboard, I can then use that. If you want to have other key bindings for this, you are more than welcome to add those. So let's say you wanted to also add in the right shift, all you'd have to do is just simply type in right shift and add it in there. If you want to add anything for gamepads, game controllers, or that kind of stuff, you can also do it, but for now, I am happy with shift. So close that, and now what we need to do is open up our third person character, which has all the information relating to our mech, and within here, we need to create a couple of variables. The first one is for the energy, so the engine knows whether or not we are able to be using our sprint, and the second one is just simply whether or not the sprinting is active. So within your third person character, create a new variable, and we're going to give this the name sprint energy, just like that. And then for the variable type, we're going to set this to float so that we have a numerical value. We're going to hit compile, and by default, we're going to set this equal to 1. And once again, with this energy at the moment, the way that we're setting it up, we are going to be having it going from 0 to 1. So 0 is going to be 0%, 1 is going to be 100%, 1 being the whole value, so 0.5 would be 50%, and so on and so forth. So that is all good and well. We've got our variable for that. What we now need to do is create another variable, and this one's going to be called sprint active, and this is just going to tell the engine whether or not the player should be sprinting. So with this needs to be a true or false value, so we need to change this from a float to a boolean, hit compile, and make sure that your default value is set to untrue. So now what we can do is we can start working on the code which is going to be setting up this sprint system. What I'm going to be doing for this sprint system, I'm going to click and drag and press C to make a comment, and then with this, I'm just going to give it the name sprint. And the reason why I've made this comment here is just so we can easily get back to it later on, and I'm just going to expand this little box and just place our code within here. So what we're going to be doing is right clicking and typing in sprint. We are looking for the action event, and this is going to allow us to use the inputs that we set up earlier on. When we first press this button to sprint, what we need to do is run a check to see whether or not they have got enough energy to sprint, and the minimum amount is going to be 0.1. So with your condition, we are going to be looking for float greater than or equal to, and then with this, we are going to get our sprint energy, get a reference to that, and we are going to be hooking this up to our A. And then our B is going to be 0.1. This is how much energy we're checking for. This should be the minimum amount. Once it's done this, what we're going to be doing is setting sprint, I'm spelling it wrong there, set sprint active to true to tell the engine that, okay, we've got enough energy, you need to make it sprint. From there, what we're going to be doing is actually making it sprint, actually increasing the speed of the player. The way that we're going to do this is by getting the character movement component from the components panel at the top here, and then dragging out from that and setting the max walk speed. One thing I do want to note to start with is the default is 600. So I think a reasonable sprinting speed is going to be 1200, which is double that. So with that, I'm going to set the max walk speed to 1200. And that is it. Our character is now going to be sprinting. After we've done this, what we now need to do is get our sprint energy. And we just need to do float minus float. We need to take away 0.1 energy once they activate that sprint. And then with that, we are going to turn this into set sprint energy, and it's going to be doing what we need it to. So what we can do now is, if you want it to take away sprint energy every 1 second, what we're going to be doing is checking to see if they've still got enough energy every single second. The way we're going to do this is at the end here, we are going to simply add a delay node, and then up at the top here, we are going to make this nice and clean by adding a reroute node in the middle. And then from this, we're just going to hook it up to the start where it goes to check to see if they've got enough sprint energy. The delay duration is 1, and this is what's going to control how quickly it's going to take away that sprint energy. Now, if they release it, we need to tell the engine that sprint is no longer active. So we need to set sprint active to untrue, and then from here, we're going to copy the set max walk speed by control clicking both of them to select them both, and then just pasting them in over here. And at this point, you want to set your max walk speed down to 600, which is the default. Also, if after you've done your check and the player does not have enough sprint energy to continue sprinting, we are going to tell it to go back to this point where it's going to stop its sprinting. So that is our code for our sprint system. If I go ahead and compile, you shouldn't have any issues, and if I jump into the game, I should be able to test this. Now at the moment, we don't have an indicator on the screen to show us how much sprint energy we've got. But if I hold down a left shift, you can see it's going to increase the speed, and it should continue to sprint for 10 seconds. After that 10 seconds, it should go back down to a normal speed, which you can see it has just done there. So you can see I'm no longer able to reactivate my sprint. We're all out of energy. That's all good. So our code is working exactly how I want it to. What we need to do now is get that sprint energy being displayed on the screen. The way I'm going to do this is to go into my Mech Combat folder, Blueprints, and open up my HUD widget. And in here, we are going to be adding in a progress bar. With this progress bar selected, we are going to go to the background image, and what we're going to do is look for the sprint energy image. If you don't know the name of it off the top of your head, just go to your folder containing it, which is stamina. So it's stamina fill and stamina no fill. So go back into Blueprints, HUD widget, and then set your background image to no fill, which is stamina no fill. Set your margin to 0, and then your fill image needs to be stamina and then fill. You can see I've got it at the bottom there. And once again, set your margin to 0, and what you should have now, if you move your percentage, is the bar moving from left to right. Notice it is currently green. That is because we've got our fill color and opacity still affecting it. So set R, G, B, and A all equal to 1, and that way it's just going to use the colors from the images. If I zoom in, what I now need to do is position this the way that I want it to. So first of all, I'm going to anchor it to the bottom right, and I'm going to set my percentage to 100%, and then I'm simply just going to scale out this little bar so it matches up with our health bar. So I'm just going to move it just above it, line it up, make sure it's nice and clean and nice and easy to see, and then just move it above that little bar there. So now what we need to do is set up a binding to link this to our energy variable, and once again it's really straightforward to do. Go to progress with your energy bar selected and then create a binding. With this binding, from get%1, we are going to be casting to the third person character. As the third person character, you want to get your sprint energy and feed this into the return value. With your object wildcard, set this to get player character, hit compile, and what it should do now is get the information it needs and feed it into that bar. Hit play, and you can see in the bottom right hand corner now I've got my energy bar. If I hold down shift, you can see every second it is going to take away some of that energy, and once it's completely finished, once it's completely empty, it is going to stop sprinting, or if I release it manually there as well. Anyway guys, that is pretty much everything for this video. Once again guys, thanks for watching, stay awesome, keep creating. Your boy Virtus, signing out.
This video was made possible by my supporters on Patreon. If you want more videos like this, check out my Patreon page using the link in the description. To stay up to date on new releases, make sure you follow us on social media.